You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and my guest today is an interesting doctor who is also here in California like I am, and his name is Jeffrey, I'm going to get this wrong, Gross?
Correct.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm never sure with those double letters, it could go either way. And should I call you Dr. Gross or Jeffrey? Do you have
Jeffrey's fine for me.
Jeffrey's fine. Okay. Jeffrey is an MD. He's also a neurosurgeon, and he is the owner of a company called Spine and has a regenerative medicine practice called Recelebrate. And he offers specialized precision and concierge treatment options for patients with neck and or back problems, as well as brain and head injuries. And we're going to talk to him and let him tell us a little bit more about his background and how he ended up in this field of medicine, let alone in medicine, period. I think I know even myself, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a doctor, and not very many of us actually did it. So, anyways, Jeffrey, welcome to the podcast. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you ended up where you are now.
Great. Thank you so much. As we were talking before the beginning of the podcast, we share roots. We went to undergraduate at the same esteemed university, University of California at Berkeley.
Yep.
I'm from the Midwest, humble roots, small town, work ethic and all that, and was fortunate to move to Washington, D.C. area to go to high school, and then out to the West Coast to go to Berkeley. I was narrowing it down between M.I.T. and Berkeley, and had a visit at Berkeley, and I was sold. It was beautiful. So also it's not the Boston weather, so that was good.
Exactly.
Too.
Yes.
And to have Nobel laureates as professors, and the Division I traditions and all that was great fun. And I have a degree there in biochemistry, which is oddly part of what's called the College of Letters and Science, as you may recall from there.
Yes.
And even though some of that's been reorganized since I left, it was really more of a degree in molecular biology. And molecular biology and biochemistry really is understanding the processes of our cells. It maybe not just human cells, but any kind of life form cells, plants, animals, anything. But most of the focus, of course, that has utility to help people comes from understanding the human or the mammalian cell processes and metabolism. I say metabolism, I say what's going on inside the cell, what's the programming.
Okay.
And I got on a pre-med track. There was no pre-med major at Berkeley. No. So you have to pick one of these, and I loved it, and I thought, okay, I'm getting ready for medical school. That's something I want to do, and I really loved all this what we call basic science, the biochemistry behind it and all that. And you get whisked right off to med school and residency and training and practice, and you look back and say, oh, I missed that really great science that I don't get to apply directly every day. And, it's in my head. I know what's going on when I'm prescribing something or what have you. Mm-hmm. So I reassess things in my practice. After about 20 years of practice, I was pushing up against the machine. The machine is government, the health insurance, the bean counters who are making decisions for patients, Wired magazine called this a number of years ago, and I quote it all the time, so forgive me if you've heard it, but rationing by hassle. They make getting the care that your doctor says you need difficult.
Yeah.
You have to try these other things first. They're more financially efficient for the insurance company. Everything's drilled down into a cookbook. Kaiser is the king of cookbook medicine, for example.
I know. I have Kaiser. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people do. And I do a lot of out of Kaiser second opinions as well. Not that Kaiser doctors are bad or anything, so they're beholden to a certain formula, and that formula is designed to make someone money. So there's a huge conflict of interest built into the institutionalized healthcare system. So I call this institutionalized. And
it's gone. It's not just Kaiser anymore. It's
right.
all of the health.
Kaiser was trendsetter.
They were a leader. Yes, exactly. A leader in it. Yeah. Yeah.
So for years, pardon me, the delivery of healthcare has become more expensive a little bit every year. And the payment structures for healthcare has either stayed the same or gone down or had these, just token increases. And this is why, Medicare is bankrupt, and all the payers now sort of base what they pay on Medicare, which makes no sense, but that's what they do. And why? Because people aren't pushing back. The doctors just take it. We're not good businessmen generally. So in any event, out of that frustration and watching patients frustrated, because these health insurance companies pit the patient against the doctor. They send the patient and they say, "Oh, welcome. Nice to meet you. I've got good insurance." Okay, we'll see. And then when you get the payment back and there's a balance due for the patient, they get upset. But I'm paying for this insurance. Well, that's the game they're playing, right? They want the patient upset with the doctor. They want the doctor's office bogged down with this bogus peer review nonsense and pre-authorization. We have to hire other. It makes no sense. It's back to rationing by hassle. So I got frustrated. I got frustrated for my patients. I want to give my patients the time. Because if you don't sit and listen and do a good exam, the risk of missing something is huge. So that comes with my going back and updating myself on what's happened in biochemistry and molecular biology and in the life sciences for the last 25 years. I got very involved in stem cells. And I started going to additional training, and I started to employ that in my practice. And now a part of my practice has become not only regenerative medicine, but regenerative is really anti-aging medicine. So, and maybe the word medicine is wrong because it's so simple. Some lifestyle changes that earlier we start, the more we get out of it. So, that's the long evolution. Thank you for letting me, ambulate around that. So.
No, all of that's super interesting. Absolutely. And talking about medical insurance and Medicare, which I also have, is, my God, you go on for hours just with the stupidity and just the way it's set up and everything else. And so I don't need to get started on that either. Thank you very much. And I'm healthy. So, my God, if somebody isn't, I can't even imagine. I just can't. Yeah. Anyways, so very interesting. What do you find right now to be most interesting to you, kind of cutting edge, for people and anti-aging, which you already mentioned?
Well, I sort of divide anti-aging into 3 levels or buckets. The primary level is very simple, mostly free things you can do. We're talking about lifestyle, exercise, vitamins, supplements, proper rest, breathing, all kinds of little things that add up. And when I do an anti-aging consultation, that's phase 1. It doesn't really cost much. Maybe the cost of the vitamins or something like that.
Which are expensive these days.
They are
not just necessarily yours. I'm just saying the whole supplement industry is also.
It's fair, and I currently I don't offer any or make too many recommendations. I buy mine online, have them shipped to the house.
So do I.
I'm also I'm not just the owner of Recelebrate. I'm a customer. So
there you go.
But maintaining health is the cost of vitamins and supplements is the most inexpensive way to maintain your health. In addition to lifestyle changes, and we call those lifestyle changes epigenetic changes, and maybe we'll explain that later if you like. The second level would be sort of more what we call the kind of a biohacking level. It's that term can be used or misused, but basically someone is willing to take some additional steps to get more out of their anti-aging program. It could be use of mushrooms, adaptogens. It could be use of certain substances like rapalogs or rapamycin, which is really initially an antibiotic, but turns out has anti-aging properties.
Interesting.
There are other rapalogs and other types of things coming down the pike. Mitochondrial support supplements, mitochondria being an element within the cell. It's kind of a cell within the cell, has its own DNA and I'll call that biohacking because a lot of those things are not necessarily FDA approved for that purpose. But to be fair, in medicine, many things doctors do are not FDA approved. We do on a daily basis. So the FDA does not manage what we do, although sometimes they try. The FDA approves devices and medications for certain uses, and then doctors can use them off-label if it's appropriate with informed consent. And then the third bucket would be regenerative medicine of sorts. Our body has the ability to heal itself. For example, Susan, do you have young family members in your family, maybe children, grandchildren, or nieces, nephews?
Just sort of, yep.
So you're outside, they're riding their bicycle, whatever. The young person falls, skins his or her knee, and they cry, and you clean the wound, and you give it a kiss and put some bandage on it, and they're all better. 3 days later, the Band-Aid falls off, and the scab is almost done. It's gone. It's healed.
Yeah. You
and I bump our elbow, and we've got a bruise for 2 weeks, right? Okay.
Yep.
Why can't we heal like that 7-year-old or 3-year-old? Why? And it's the same body, the same DNA. And the answer is we can with some help. That machinery that heals us, that repairs, that regenerates us, loses its efficiency over time. We can talk about why that is and how that correlates with disease and age, if you like. But in short, regenerative medicine is amping up or revving up our own healing system. And we have some amazing, I'm going to call them, at least in my office, anecdotal results. And there are some wonderful studies. Of course, they're not from the US necessarily. There are some new ones coming. But the Europeans and the Chinese have been way ahead of us on publications.
That's not new either, yeah.
Yeah, the regulatory issues there, I think, allow them to do more and try things faster. And if there was one inspiring study, if you'll let me just keep rambling.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things that really caught my attention was there's a French physician, last name Herneglau, and he published a series of papers on knees. And this is, I quote it to patients all the time, and for your audience, I think it's very interesting. They took patients in France who were recommended to have a knee replacement. So this is a group of people whose orthopedic doctor said you're either bone on bone or you have a degenerated, or what some doctors use this phrase, arthritic knee, even though that's probably a garbage term and misused. For the most part, it's too vague. These are people, they say you need a knee replacement if you want to help your knee. So Dr. Herneglau came in and said, I'm going to offer you, to this group of patients, I'm going to offer you an option. Would you like to join my study? We're going to do some injections of stem cells. Okay. You can either have the knee replacement or join my study. And he compared the groups. And they did a couple different types of injections in the knee area, but and they have two groups of injections. One of the groups at 15 years, only 15% had have their knees be re-examined for knee replacement. 85% were doing great. 15 years. Remember, these were patients who needed knee replacements.
Yeah.
That treatment that they had with the stem cells, which is regenerative medicine, changed them, improved their knee. And 15 years, only 15% needed it. And you might ask, why don't you take those 15% and do another treatment? And you can. That wasn't part of the study. The other group, different type of stem cell injection, it was 60 or 65%, I believe, were still doing great at 15 years. I mean, that's 15 years is a long time. So
especially if you're older.
Right. So we have these treatments. They are not FDA approved, but they're available, and they can help us, our own bodies programming our own cells, help us regenerate like when we were younger, like the 3-year-old skinning the knee. I mean, that's the example. You know this. A child under 5 or 6 years of age, if they cut off just the tip of their finger, it will regenerate.
Wow.
We have genes that are like the lizard. We cut off the lizard's tail and they grow it back. Or starfish and grow the arm back. There are genes that regulate that, and they get turned off as we age. And so we are learning more and more about turning them back on. It's an amazing field. I'm stimulated intellectually, and if I can help patients avoid surgery, potentially have a better quality of life, less pain, and that's probably my most frequent customer is someone with an orthopedic type ailment, spine, knee, shoulder. We just took care of someone with a shoulder tear, biceps, all kinds of things. So I love those because we get good results from them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So is there any kind of like age limit on doing these kinds of things? Because I know, for instance, with women with osteoporosis, a lot of the time, it gets really bad, assuming they're still around, when they hit their 70s and 80s.
Well, osteoporosis is a thing unto itself, and important to know that bone density is associated with longevity. So if you maintain your bone mass, you will maintain your lifespan and health span. And that to maintain your bone mass, I know I'm going backwards a little bit, Susan. Thank you for
No, that's okay.
letting me sort of color outside the lines here. But
this is of personal interest. So
So to maintain bone mass, you need you need to have the right hormone balance. You can take all the vitamin D and calcium that you like, and if you don't have the right hormone balance, that it's not going to get driven into the bone cells. You got to have weight bearing exercise, and you have to have the right dietary makeup. You got to have protein in your diet, so weight bearing exercise is one of the largest components. A colleague of mine, John Jankwish, developed a device called OsteoStrong. And OsteoStrong, there are places where you can go use it or obtain it. It helps accelerate that weight-bearing effect.
And I'll write that down.
He's quite an interesting guy and very intelligent to come up with this. And I think it's going to gain more traction, much better than some of the bisphosphonates and drugs out there, because there are other ways to develop bone density: weight-bearing exercise, hormones, and then of course vitamin D, calcium, the right nutrients and elements. And vitamin D, incidentally, is associated with the right amount of vitamin D, and vitamin D supplementation is also associated with longevity and reduced all-cause mortality. That means reduced dying from a heart problem or a stroke or anything else. Just generally speaking, it's not a cause and effect. It's just an observation. So that's why I'm very big on the right supplements for people. And by supplementation, not just that 100% RDA on the side of the cereal box.
No, it's always too low on most of them, isn't it?
That's the number that avoids malnutrition. I'm looking for optimal nutrition. So, You're
looking for health, not just that you're alive.
So there are ways also if we go into the third bucket, the regenerative bucket, to deal with osteoporosis as well. But you got to have the first bucket handled, and the third bucket's not going to do much either. So there are ways to do that. And you think about it, we really want to maintain our own stem cells. We want them as youthful as we can get them. And where are the most robust stem cell source in our body? The bone marrow. So if you're losing your bone density, you're losing your stem cells, you're basically losing your life force. If I can borrow an idol from Tony Robbins.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. No, that all makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So, out of curiosity, are you the only one around that's doing this, or do you have lots of compatriots that are?
No. There's quite a group. There are a couple of regenerative medicine associations. To also, there's the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, called the ARM because of the 4 A's.
Okay.
Very alliterative. There are biohacking groups that I belong to, that others belong to, and these are I'd say more professional level groups, not just clubs that share the latest nootropic, which is also fine and cool. I like that too. It's just no, I'm not the only practitioner of biohacking, regenerative medicine, and anti-aging. They're everywhere.
Interesting. Yeah. Because biohacking, I mean, that term has been around for quite a while.
Right.
As well. A lot of amateurs out there starting with that.
Right. And we've learned some things from them, and we continue to, because they try some things. And, but biohacking can be as simple as, getting the right amount of sleep and room, all the way through, different use of these compounds that you can try for enhancing your cognitive function. And
okay.
They're called nootropics, and which are quite amazing. You think about it, like caffeine's a nootropic of sorts.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. I know I take a couple of things, memory things primarily. That's my main problem.
We have things that are helpful for cognitive function, not only the nootropics. They're all the right diet and supplementation. Exercise,
and
increasing cerebral blood flow, brain blood flow, and just like it's good for bone density, is actually good for cognition. So exercise is basically the way to stay as young as you can. The one thing that could limit you, of course, would be a joint problem: knees, hips, back, and that's where we come in with other spot treatments. But one of the most exciting aspects of regenerative medicine is not just stem cells, but something called exosomes. And exosomes are small vesicles given off by stem cells or cells that communicate with their neighbors, and they're giving a signal saying, let's program ourselves. All you cells in the neighborhood, we're going to program ourselves to reduce chronic inflammation, to repair, to regenerate. More youthful channels. We're not going to watch PBS. We're going to watch cartoons. So it's a youthful programming, and that's the basis of some of the treatments to help people regenerate, to help people heal. And these exosomes are available, and they're a lot easier to deliver than stem cells. Plus, they're so small, they cross in what's called the blood-brain barrier. They get into the nervous system. Stem cells do not get into the nervous system because those cells are too large, unless you deliver them directly into the nervous system, which is not fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Doesn't sound fun.
You can have an IV of exosomes, and they will travel into the brain. So we are seeing, there are papers out right now on scientific papers, the benefits of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and other dementias, other neurological ailments, and cognition in general.
Yeah, no, that's Parkinson's is not a nice disease. My father had that.
Well, let's use that as perhaps a segue to talk about disease for a minute. When you look at the diseases of aging, you're looking at you're in the Parkinson's, you're looking at Alzheimer's, you're looking at diabetes, acquired type 2 diabetes. You're looking at cardiovascular, plaque, atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. All of these are diseases of accumulated chronic inflammation. Inflammation is kind of a vague word. Inflammation is our body's response to a threat. If you get a sore throat, an infection, your immune system revs up and fights through what's called acute inflammation. And that acute inflammation might take hours, days, or even a week or so. And that is a designed cellular programming to release a bunch of signals to bring the immune system, turn that on and turn it off. Over time, that turn off gets leaky.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't fully turn off. And that's where you get what's called chronic inflammation. And we accumulate that. And we accumulate the cellular proteins. For example, Alzheimer's disease involves these tangled plaques of protein, mistangled, misfolded proteins in the brain called amyloid and the tau proteins. And that they cause, or they are being caused by chronic inflammatory changes in the cell. Same with diabetes. The sensitive endocrine cells in the pancreas don't respond to insulin the same way, and there's an inflammatory result. Same with coronary artery disease of the heart and the vessels. The plaque is an inflammatory. All this is a result of chronic inflammatory change. It's a reduction in our ability to turn on and fully off an acute inflammatory response. And it's this accumulation of chronic inflammation. And the faster you accumulate it, the faster you age. Someone who got to this before me calls this inflammaging.
Okay. I've heard that term. Yeah.
It's 100% correct. Our biological or physiological age, not just our temporal age on the calendar, our actual, how we're actually aging inside us is really a measure of chronic inflammation. And that's why you could take, two people of the same age, two 80-year-olds, and put them right next to each other. And one's still, running a 5K every day and has muscle mass, and the other one is frail. And if you do the blood tests and you do the called the DNA aging test, the methylation and the glycation test, you will see a difference in these people because of their lifestyle and some genetics, but mainly lifestyle, what we call epigenetics,
right?
Over their age. How well was their nutrients, their supplements, how well was their how they eat, environment, the exercise, and back to exercise. So don't stop moving. As a famous colleague of mine would say, motion is lotion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, I try. My husband and I go for our walk every morning, and just got back to the gym, and then we just found out they're changing things around, and it's like, oh, okay. I'll probably have to go find another one.
Keep moving. Keep exercising. There was I just read something about a nighttime walk. It should be the last thing you do after a meal. We have a light cycle and a dark cycle like plants. And when light out, that's when we should be taking our calories. And when it's dark out, we really need the restorative sleep. And that exercise helps, at the end of the day, helps thrust your metabolism into the dark cycle. And that we need that rhythm. Our cells, it's good for the programming of the cells. So, and that's why melatonin supplementation at night may be more important than we think, because our pineal glands release this, and that's why if you've ever known a teenager, they're so hard to wake up in the morning because they release that melatonin and they sleep like babies for the most part. So after our teens, we stop making the melatonin robustly. And even people who sleep well say, I don't need melatonin. You may need it. It may be really good for actually your cellular metabolism. There are a lot of new papers coming out on replacing the hormones of sorts, even melatonin. So, which leads us into bioidentical hormone replacement. Controversial, it's expensive, but that's why a lot of health plans don't like to pay for that. But it used to be that people say, well, as you get older, your hormones go down. The testosterone goes down in men, the estrogen, progesterone goes down in women, and that's just what happens. And the real cause and effect may be the other direction. We age because they go down. So as you know, so some of these hormones keep the cell metabolism programming where we want them in a less leaky, chronic inflamed state. And without so much of these hormones, even though it's considered normal to have a decline in the older ages, replacing it back at where we were in the younger ages seems to have youthful benefits. So make sure you meet with your doctor, you get informed consent on the risks and benefits of those things. But you know, we have men now starting the testosterone replacement in their 30s and 40s.
Wow.
And the longer they do that, as long as they're watched and cared for, have benefits long term that accumulate. So you ask, you know, you said your father would be about 118 now if he was still living. Is that possible? Is there a max? I think 120 is not out of the question.
Yeah, there are people out there.
Not just an occasional outlier, you know, who ate a Mediterranean diet for the entire life, but we're talking about, you know, a group, you know, percentage of the population living well past 100. That's not far-fetched at all.
No, I believe that. I totally believe that. There are so many robust 80-year-olds running around, some of them literally, that, you know, 20 years ago, you just didn't see. So
I think if you were in your 60s and 70s, you want to be more like that, running around 80-year-old, you got to size yourself into it. You got to make the right adjustments, the epigenetic adjustments in your lifestyle. You got to really up your supplement game, your vitamin supplement. And that's part of what we do for people. And you got to consider maybe some biohacking tricks. And if you're game, maybe some of the regenerative medicine. And exercise, you know, you're walking, and that's great. I would love to hear that you do something more, a little bit of resistance training, maybe some bands. You can do them at home. You know, you do 20 minutes in the morning of that, and maybe you go for your walk in the evening or whatever, 2 walks a day. Step up your game, and I think it'll have anti-aging benefits for you.
No, that's it. Yeah. Well, when we go to the gym, I do weights, and I do some really fast walking on a hill, that kind of thing. And trying to think, what else do I do? Yeah, just the machines, as well as some of the free weights and that sort of thing. Yeah. Just I just didn't have that much of it here at home. I have a few free weights, but
they make these really tough stretchy bands. You can buy them online. At $20 or $25 for a set of them that come in different strengths, and you can do all kinds of exercises with those, and as if you have weights, and they're easy to store. It's a little bit. I ended up buying some of those a couple of years ago. The lighter ones, because I had broken my collarbone, and so I started using those to try and build up, build my arm back up. Let's not just build it back up. Let's maintain it so that, you know, it stimulates the bone marrow. The bone marrow has the stem cells. It's an aging move to exercise. So.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. In fact, that after we eat breakfast, my husband and I are gonna go up to the gym.
Perfect. Okay.
So yeah. He was an athlete his whole life, so he's continued all of that. COVID kind of.
It sure did.
A kink in it, because we didn't really have any place. Both of our gyms closed, not to reopen again. So
people make a lot of unique changes to keep that for sure. Yeah, exactly. So we're still kind of touchy-feely out there about trying to find the right thing to do. So so is there any sort of a resource that you recommend that people look at, when you're talking about supplements, you're talking about exercise, any of those kind of things? I'm working on one. It's just good. I'm about halfway. a book I've been writing, and it'll accomplish most of this, cover it. But it's ever changing. By the time it's published, there'll be new things to add. So,
well, that's true.
But yes, I mean, you have to do your homework. You have to get involved in this. You have to be proactive. You have to make changes and stick with them. You know, I take lots of supplements now that I wasn't taking a few years ago. And because I got all these different bottles coming in from Amazon, what have you, I end up buying these. They make these very little, I wonder if I have one with me, very small Ziploc bags you can buy for pills. And yeah, I'll pull one out here just to show you, because I pre-package them every 2 weeks. Otherwise, it's a lot of work. And I put all my daily. Is the light?
Yes. I have those. I use those for my supplements as well.
You got my fish oil. You got your vitamin D. And I'm doing fish oil now 3 times a day. I want to get at least 3,000 milligrams. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So
that's good to know.
Doing the vitamin D, I do twice now. I'm low in vitamin D on my blood test, so I'm genetically low. So I really want to amp that up. So I'm doing that. I'm doing lots of new mitochondrial support things like L-Biba. It's BAIBA. Dihydroberberine, spermidines, all the, and these you can find them on Amazon. You can easily spend a couple $100 a month on supplements.
We do.
And then protein. We do not. Americans do not, and probably humans do not get enough protein. We were designed to be protein-based organisms. You know, you've heard from Star Trek or whatever, you know, we are carbon-based life forms.
Yeah.
It's not exactly true. We are protein-based life forms with carbon support structures.
Okay.
So we don't want the carbon so much. Carbon comes with everything, but we are protein-fixing animals, just like plants are. We need our protein. If you want to be maintaining and even gaining some muscle mass, and muscle mass is also associated with longevity. If you want to be maintaining your muscle mass, you need to probably have upwards of 1 gram of protein per day per pound of body weight. So then let's assume you weigh 120 pounds. That means you would need 120 grams of protein a day, and that's hard to do. And that's why I recommend that you get a good supplemental protein. I'll admit, I like the chocolate flavored ones, and I get the low calorie ones because I don't want the calories, but I put it in everything. I'll put it in a bowl of yogurt. I'll put it in my coffee sometimes. I'll turn this into a hot cocoa. And because 2 scoops of that I think is 30 grams. So unless you're having, chicken, fish, and beef jerky all day long, and we're not, let's face it, protein's expensive, good protein. So you got to get your macros, called the macros, right? You got to get your protein in. And then if you have weight issues, then that's a whole different conversation. Obesity obese fat tissue is inflammatory. So we talked about the diseases of inflammation. So being obese is a pro-aging problem.
Amongst other things, right? I mean,
correct. Yeah,
it has a whole host of issues.
Yeah.
No, it's it is interesting because I don't know. I don't remember. Was it like 10 or 20 years ago that all of a sudden protein wasn't good for you? That was the thing, and so everyone's cut down on their protein.
To be fair, too much protein can hurt your kidneys. But
right.
Very few people are having that problem, and the people that have that problem probably already have some kidney issues.
Yeah. But I just remember it was even just for weight and other things, and they were saying, to eat less protein, which never really made a lot of sense to me.
No, we need our protein. The brain needs the protein. Yeah.
Does your heart need it as well?
Well, all the muscle tissue needs it.
All the muscles, yeah. Okay.
All of our cells make proteins and the cellular programming cannot take place. We can't make the enzymes and proteins, and the cell cannot produce them. We can't even make, DNA and RNA repair or DNA and RNA So cells can't divide without protein. We need to have protein.
Wow. Okay.
We need to have all the macros, the carbs, the fats, the proteins, but we are protein deficient in this community.
Probably some other things as well, some of which you've already mentioned, but yeah.
And honestly, I had no idea my entire career, we're dealing with big bad things, disc herniations and pinched nerves and brain. And what's a little vitamin D going to do? Well, it turns out those things are important. Here's one more I'll give you. Probiotics.
Yes.
We are somewhat dependent on the microorganisms living in our gut and in other places in our body, but specifically the gut.
Right. The microbiome.
It is the microbiome. It's involved in maintaining anti-inflammatory. The right mix of bacteria helps us reduce inflammation, chronic inflammation we talked about. It helps. These bacteria digest certain phytochemicals and fruits and vegetables and elements that make other anti-inflammatory molecules that we can't digest ourselves. So we do have a mutual relationship. We give these microbes a place to live, and they give us some certain help with our biology. And the problem is, unless we're rolling around in the dirt like when we were kids and getting soil on our hands and in our mouths, that we're not getting the right makeup. And I'll admit myself, I like a little Splenda in my morning black coffee. So those artificial sweeteners really impact the bacterial population. So I will always take a probiotic after I'm done with my morning coffee. I also take another one at night. And I'm doing, and I did not, we didn't even cover this in medical school.
No, you didn't.
It's of crucial importance, and hopefully they're adding it to the curriculum. There's an explosion in the science behind it right now. There's a paper every day on some type of relation. There was actually a study, and I have it somewhere in my files, of taking a group of frail individuals who were living in a facility, elderly, and giving them probiotics, and they saw across the board reduced disease, reduced mortality, improved quality of life, improved functioning. So if you're not already taking probiotics, Susan.
Oh yeah, no, I've been taking probiotics for a long time. What about prebiotics?
Yeah, so prebiotics really is giving your
probiotics something to eat.
Probiotics work. It also helps the motility and moving food through your system faster, because really we're talking about fiber. And if you think about it, we extract the nutrients from our food, and then it collects as waste. And the longer that waste sits in your system, the longer it seeps and leaks back into us. So you want to get those toxins through you, eat more fiber or probiotic or prebiotic, and get that stuff out of you quickly.
So out of curiosity, on a totally personal note, what if you can't take very much vitamin C at a time?
Why would that be?
I get what is it called? I don't know. It affects my bladder.
I would have to look at that.
Yeah.
There are different ways to take it and try it. You can take it out. I take a lot of vitamin C personally.
Yeah. I know that's what I used to do, and it turned out to be too much for me.
Yeah, I used to think Linus Pauling was a little crazy, but now I think he wasn't.
Yeah, right.
For those listeners who don't know, this is sacrilege, because we're talking about a Stanford grad who's the
oh my God, I know.
But he's a double Nobel Prize winner, and he was known for taking 10 to 12 grams a day of vitamin C. Well, it turns out that there's actually a protocol for treating cancer that you take 50 or 100 grams IV on a periodic basis, and it's quite significantly beneficial. You won't hear much about this because Big Pharma is going to keep it quiet. But so I tend to take anywhere from 8 to 12 grams a day. Okay. My hack is, I don't like to take a lot. I got to take enough pills as is. I get the chewables.
Okay.
I don't know, it's chewables or what, and then if I'm really hungry and I'm not ready for a meal, I can eat a handful of those, like it's a handful of almonds or something, and I feel like, oh, I've just had a meal, so I'm full now. I don't know if that's gonna help your bladder issue or not.
Yeah.
Not sure. If spacing it out throughout the day makes a difference.
Yeah, that's what I try and do. I try and just take smaller amounts at a time.
Yeah. So there are different ways to get vitamin C. Obviously, besides food sources. So it could be the form. If it's irritating or just causes you go all the time, there might be.
No, it's irritating. Yeah,
it's irritating.
No. Yeah. So, anyways, we don't need actually on this. The whole rest of the world doesn't need to know about my bladder problems.
There's like permitine and things you can take to reduce bladder irritation.
Okay. Yeah.
There may be some hacks so that you can get your
right.
vitamin.
Yeah.
By the way,
no.
Regeneration, which is really young, anti-aging, requires vitamin C. That's one of the needed vitamins.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Vitamin C. You got to make collagen, and that's required.
Yes, I know. So I try and eat more fruit and things like that. Food doesn't particularly bother me. It just,
right.
I think I just took what for my body at the time was too much of the vitamin C, or it might have been the kind.
Some experimentation there. Some biohacking to figure it out, but
yes, I think so. Absolutely. So, anyways, well, we've been on for a while, and all very, very, very interesting, and I'm sure we could probably talk for a lot longer because there's a lot more information out there. So
I'd be happy to talk again at some point.
Okay, that'd be great.
My book, we'll get you a copy, and
yes, please.
To you and your listeners, we can talk about the new things that have come up since today's talk.
Yes. Oh, exactly. I know. Well, you'll have to start a newsletter or something to keep everybody up to date after that.
That's a good point.
Yes. Why don't you just give us a short little, what's the most important things for people to be thinking about, to be looking out for? I understand that not all the same things don't apply necessarily to everybody,
Well, I think first and foremost, make sure you get your annual checkups and your preventative care. And that's just the big stuff. Make sure you're taking more than just a one-a-day vitamin. This is a comprehensive. You can meet with a nutritionist or a functional medicine doctor or someone like myself. If you really want to, have a comprehensive meeting and cover all the buckets, we call that an anti-aging consultation. And, we do those like this by Zoom or what have you. And we just basically go through A to Z. Let's talk about your health history in detail. It's not a 10-minute visit. They're usually a good hour. And we formulate a to-do list, and then we see how things go. And there are some tests now that we can do to look at the results of those life changes. And these are these new DNA tests. And you get one, and you make all these changes. 6 months later, you get another one, and it measures what they call your DNA age, for example. And there are different versions of this. I'm actually studying for my book, but it's a way to see what the results are, not just how you feel and look, but it's a way to measure sort of objectively and scientifically how you're doing. And we could tweak it from there. What are you missing? What else can we add? What do you want to try from here? And then I think what happens is it's got to be part of your hobbies too. Otherwise, you're destined for a normal, we call normal lifespan. It's what the CDC tells us, which is currently about 82 years for women in the U.S. and 79 for men.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah. There's part of me that would like to make it past 82, and part of me that's kind of like, the way the world is going, I'm not sure I really want to be there.
Well, the world is a difficult place. got to create your own bubble if you need to.
I know. What can I say? That's why I live in California.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. I've really appreciated you coming on. Yeah. And I will look forward to seeing your book.
Thank you.
For sure. And yes, I would be happy to really enjoy having you come back maybe after the first of the year or something. And it's not that far away.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, it's not that far away, but I'd be happy if you want to do some specific topics or what's this, I'm happy to do this as you and your audience would benefit.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I will say what I usually say, which is actually kind of funny under the circumstances right now. But I usually say, well, neither of us are medical doctors, but you are, but it doesn't count for this anyways. And we can't really call any of this medical advice. It's just information, right?
That's true.
And if people are having issues and specific problems, please go and find either your doctor or an appropriate doctor,
right,
to deal with. And if it's an emergency, please go to the hospital, because they really are still kind of the best place at that point.
Agreed.
So with that, I will say thank you.
And
as I say to everybody, I will see everybody next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.